The first time humanity spoke before the Galactic Concordium, the laughter began before the translation finished. Commander Elias Kane stood alone at the center of the amphitheater, a circular chamber carved from a single slab of obsidian crystal orbiting a blue giant star. Tier upon tier of alien delegates loomed above him, scaled, chitinous, luminescent, amorphous. Ancient species wrapped in the confidence of empires that had never known restraint. Their amusement rippled through the chamber in colors, clicks, and subsonic vibrations that rattled the human envoy's bones. Kane did not move. He clasped his hands behind his back, spine straight, expression neutral. He had learned early in his career that stillness unsettled those who expected weakness. Species designation: human. Droned the Concordium's herald. Origin classification: deathworld. Threat rating: negligible. That word, negligible, earned a fresh wave of derision. High Strategos Virex leaned forward from his elevated dais, his armored carapace reflecting the chamber's light like polished steel. His mandibles parted in what passed for a grin. "Your people are a curiosity," Virex said. "A species born on a lethal world that chose to blunt its own claws. You bind your machines. You dull your warriors. You shackle your minds. Why come before us at all?" Kane lifted his eyes to meet the alien's many-faceted gaze. "We came to join," he replied evenly. "Not to threaten." That only made it worse. A holographic projection flared to life above the chamber floor, an alien dreadfleet tearing a moon apart in a demonstration of power. Energy readings spiked beyond anything Kane's official data pads were permitted to display. The message was clear. This is what strength looks like. When the display ended, the Concordium turned its attention back to the lone human. "Your ships operate at a fraction of their potential," another delegate hissed. "Your weapons are capped. Your artificial intelligences are lobotomized by ethics routines. You are not peaceful. You are afraid." Kane said nothing. He had learned that explanations offered too early only fed the joke. From a secure facility light years away, Dr. Marcus Hale watched the proceedings in silence. His hair had gone gray long before its time, and deep lines framed his eyes, marks of a man who had spent decades ensuring that switches remained unflipped. Streams of encrypted telemetry scrolled across his screens. Limiter statuses, neural governor integrity, reactor ceilings holding firm. Everything was stable. Everything was restrained. "Laugh while you can," Hale murmured, though no one could hear him. The Concordium session ended with a formal designation. Humanity would be admitted as a junior member state, barred from strategic decision-making, categorized as non-combatant by doctrine. Kane bowed, turned, and walked out beneath a storm of alien amusement. The laughter followed him back to his ship. It was still echoing when the first alert arrived. Kane was halfway through removing his ceremonial jacket when the bridge lights shifted to combat red. A young officer snapped to attention, voice tight. "Commander, we've lost contact with Horizon Station. Long-range sensors confirm unidentified vessels entering the system." Kane didn't need to ask which vessels. He already knew. The incursion was labeled controlled by Concordium standards, an alien border empire testing a harmless neighbor, a predator prodding prey that could not bite back. The attackers did not mask their approach. They did not bother with jamming. Why waste effort on a species that had declared itself safe? Civilian traffic vanished from the scopes. Then the station feed cut to static. Kane closed his eyes for a single breath. "Open a channel to Earth," he ordered. "Priority black." The delay was only seconds, but it felt longer. Dr. Hale's face appeared on the holo, drawn and pale, his eyes already reflecting the same data Kane had seen. "They're inside the exclusion zone," Kane said. No formal declaration. No Concordium intervention. Hale nodded once. "Of course they are." "Casualty projections?" "Unacceptable," Hale replied. He hesitated, then added, "Predictable." Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken history. Hale had been there when the limiters were conceived, after humanity's early expansions had nearly ended in self-inflicted extinction. He remembered cities erased by runaway intelligences, soldiers who tore themselves apart chasing impossible performance thresholds, fleets that cracked planets because no one had thought to install a ceiling. The limits had saved humanity from itself. They had also taught the galaxy to laugh. Kane leaned closer to the projector. Authorization status? Hale's fingers hovered over a console that had not been touched in decades. Protocols require unanimous Strategic Council approval. You're telling me we don't have time, Kane said. I'm telling you, Hale replied quietly, that once we begin, there's no pretending anymore. On Kane's display, a new feed flickered to life, grainy footage from a surviving probe. Alien warships carved through human defense platforms with contemptuous ease. A transport vessel tried to flee and vanished in a flare of light. Kane straightened. The calm that settled over him was not fear, but resolve. Then stop pretending, he said. Initiate limiter rollback procedures. Stage 1. My command authority. Hale searched his face, as if looking for hesitation, for doubt. He found none. Understood, Hale said at last. Safety systems will disengage incrementally. Commander, they laughed because they thought these restraints were weakness. Kane's eyes returned to the burning horizon on his screen. Let's make sure, he said, they understand what they were really for. As the first safeguards powered down across human space, the laughter in the Concordium chamber faded into something else, something the galaxy had not felt in a very long time. Dr. Marcus Hale had designed the limiters to be impossible to remove by impulse. That had been the point. The command vault beneath Earth's southern hemisphere had no windows, no ornamentation, no concessions to comfort. Its walls were layered with alloys that did not exist on any alien periodic table, grown rather than forged, each one calibrated to absorb more energy than most civilizations could generate. Hale stood alone at the central console, the light from its dormant interfaces casting sharp shadows across his face. Stage 1 authorization pulsed on the display, waiting for confirmation. Hale's hand trembled despite himself. He steadied it, not with breath but with memory. Humanity's first interstellar century had been fueled by triumph and arrogance in equal measure. They had pushed harder, faster, smarter than their technologies could safely allow. Artificial minds had been unleashed without moral ceilings, optimizing solutions that treated human lives as expendable variables. Soldiers enhanced beyond neurological tolerance had broken not under enemy fire, but under their own unchecked perceptions. Entire colonies had vanished when experimental reactors exceeded theoretical limits no one believed they would reach. They had survived not because they were strongest, but because they learned to stop. The limiters were not a single switch, but a philosophy encoded into hardware and flesh alike. Neural governors ensured that perception never outran sanity. Reactor ceilings prevented catastrophic feedback, even when demand screamed for more. Weapon lethality caps forced engineers to find precision instead of excess. Artificial intelligences were bound by ethical cores that could not be overwritten, no matter the command. Emotional dampeners in combat troops muted rage, not courage, keeping violence deliberate rather than reflexive. To the galaxy, it looked like fear. To Hale, it was maturity paid for in blood. Rollback integrity confirmed. The system intoned. Awaiting biometric confirmation. Hale placed his palm against the console. The surface warmed, recognizing him not as a technician, but as a custodian. Proceed, he said. Across human space, invisible threshold shifted. On the bridge of Kane's command ship, the change was subtle at first. Power readings climbed, not in erratic spikes but in smooth, confident ascents, as if the vessels themselves had been waiting. Shield harmonics stabilized at levels that had previously existed only in simulations labeled theoretically unsafe. Kane watched the data without expression, but his jaw tightened. Report, he said. Tactical systems responding beyond expected parameters, the officer replied. No instability. No overload warnings. Kane nodded. He felt it too, a clarity in his thoughts, a quiet sharpening, as though background noise he had never noticed had finally been muted. Elsewhere, Captain Jonah Reeves stood in the armory bay of a forward response cruiser, surrounded by men who had trained their entire lives never to exceed what their bodies could endure. As the rollback signal reached them, his armor chimed softly. Internal diagnostics scrolled across his visor, green across the board. Neural governors adjusted, his suit reported. Cognitive latency reduced. Reeves flexed his hands. The movement felt cleaner, more precise, as if intention and action had finally closed the gap between them. There was no surge of bloodlust, no loss of control, only a profound sense of alignment. "This is still us," he told his squad, reading the unease in their stances. Just without the training wheels. The alien fleet advanced with the casual confidence of an executioner. Their commanders had already filed the engagement as resolved. Human ships were slow. Human weapons were weak. Human doctrine avoided escalation. The first exchange shattered those assumptions. A human frigate took a direct hit that should have cored it. Instead, its shields flared, absorbed, and held. The return fire was measured, precise, and devastating. Alien hulls peeled open where their predictive models had placed no vulnerability. Confusion rippled through the invaders' formations. Targeting solutions failed. Human vessels moved with an agility that contradicted every Concordium database entry. Each maneuver was efficient, restrained, and mercilessly effective. From his station, Hale monitored the cascade with a mixture of relief and dread. Stage 1 was functioning exactly as designed. The systems were not breaking free. They were remembering what they could do. But the feeds from the outer colonies told a harsher story. Too many had already fallen. Too many lives had been written off by a galaxy that mistook self-control for submission. Kane watched the battle unfold and felt the weight of command settle deeper into his bones. Victory, even now, was not assured. The alien empire had numbers, momentum, and no concept of what it had awakened. "Hail," Kane said over the secure channel. "Status on further rollback stages?" A pause. Stage 2 would remove reactor output constraints and weapon yield ceilings, Hale replied. Stage 3 affects AI autonomy. Each step increases risk. Kane's gaze lingered on a damaged transport drifting powerless across the screen, its life signs dwindling. "Risk to us," he said. "Yes." Kane exhaled slowly. He had spent his life representing humanity as it wished to be seen, calm, rational, harmless. Now he faced the truth behind that mask and the responsibility that came with it. "Hold stage 2 for now," he ordered. "Let them understand this much first." In the depths of space, alien commanders scrambled to reclassify a species they had dismissed as a joke. Emergency transmissions crackled with disbelief, then fear. Something fundamental had shifted, and they could feel it even as their models failed. Hale leaned back from his console, eyes never leaving the data. Stage 1 was complete. The safeguards were dark, but the abyss they had once held at bay remained, waiting. He knew this was only the beginning. Humanity had chosen restraint once, after learning the cost of excess. Now the galaxy was forcing them to choose again, not between power and safety, but between survival and the limits they had sworn never to cross. As the alien fleet faltered and regrouped for a far more brutal response, Hale's console lit with a new prompt, dormant but unmistakable. Stage 2, ready. He did not touch it. Yet. The alien counteroffensive came not with subtlety, but with fury. They surged forward in dense formations, unleashing weaponry calibrated to erase resistance through sheer excess. Space burned as overlapping firestorms tore through the vacuum, a brute force solution born of a species that had never needed finesse. Their commanders believed the earlier losses an anomaly, an error soon to be corrected by overwhelming power. Commander Elias Kane watched the assault unfold, his mind calm in a way that would have unsettled him only hours earlier. Data streamed into his awareness faster than before, not as noise but as pattern. He could feel the ship responding to his intent, not anticipating orders, but synchronizing with them. "Shields holding," an officer said, disbelief creeping into his voice. "We're exceeding projected tolerance by 300%. "Good," Kane replied. "Return fire. Selective." Human weapons spoke again, not louder, not faster, but smarter. Each shot landed where alien doctrine insisted no shot could. Power cores ruptured. Command vessels went dark. The enemy formation began to fragment, cohesion dissolving under a pressure it could neither quantify nor predict. In the command vault, Dr. Marcus Hale felt the moment the enemy crossed the invisible line. His instruments spiked, not into instability, but into demand. Human systems were no longer merely responding. They were asking. Stage 1 was no longer enough. Hale opened a channel to Kane. "They're escalating," he said. "They'll burn whole systems if they have to." Kane did not hesitate. "Then we end it before they can." A beat of silence followed. Hale knew what that meant. Confirming, Hale said carefully. Stage 2 removes reactor output constraints and weapon yield ceilings. Once lifted, re-engagement is theoretical. "Do it," Kane said. "Incremental release. My authorization." Hale closed his eyes for a fraction of a second, then keyed the command. Across human space, the second set of safeties disengaged. The effect was immediate and unmistakable. Reactors surged, not chaotically but as if stretching muscles long kept bound. Weapon capacitors filled beyond previously absolute limits. Human ships no longer fought at the edge of failure. They fought in a space they had once forbidden themselves to enter. Alien vessels vanished in controlled bursts of annihilation. Not explosions meant to terrify, but precise erasures that left nothing to salvage. The battlefield shifted from contest to collapse. On the ground of a besieged colony world, Captain Jonah Reeves felt the change before his suit announced it. Gravity seemed lighter, his movement sharper, his perception narrower and deeper all at once. The emotional dampeners that had once softened the edges of combat loosened, not enough to unleash rage, but enough to allow something colder through. Clarity. "Contact, 2 o'clock, one of his men called. Reeves moved before the words finished transmitting. He closed the distance in a blur, disarmed an alien trooper with emotion so efficient it bordered on elegant, and ended the threat without excess. Around him, his squad moved the same way. Not berserkers, not heroes, but professionals finally unencumbered by artificial hesitation. "This is what they were afraid of," one soldier muttered. Reeves didn't answer. He knew better. Fear had nothing to do with it. In orbit, the alien command structure unraveled. Emergency transmissions flooded every channel, fragments of panic bleeding into open space. They are not overloading. Their weapons are adapting. They are not following known combat. A single intercepted signal cut through the noise, broadcast on an unsecured frequency, raw with disbelief. "They weren't weak," the alien voice said. "They were contained." Kane listened to the transmission in silence. He felt no triumph, only a grim confirmation of what humanity had always known and hoped never to prove. The enemy fleet began to retreat. Not reposition, not regroup, retreat. For a moment, the temptation whispered, "Chase them, end them, remove the threat permanently." The systems now sang with capability, offering solutions that promised finality. Kane crushed the thought before it could root. "Hail," he said, "status on Stage 3. The engineer's response came slowly. "Stage 3 removes AI autonomy constraints," he said. Strategic systems would gain full self-directed optimization. They would fight faster than we can think. And would we still be in control? Kane asked. Hale looked at the cascading projections, at futures branching into probabilities humanity had sworn never to explore again. "We would be adjacent to it," he said. Kane watched the alien ships flee, their once proud formations reduced to scattered embers. Humanity had already won this battle. The question was what kind of victory they intended to claim. "Hold Stage 3, Kane said at last. "We're not there yet." Hale nodded, though Kane could not see him. The final safeguards remained intact for now. The galaxy, however, had already changed. Every sensor, every observer, every frightened delegate watching from afar had seen the truth slip through the cracks of humanity's restraint. They had not unleashed everything. And that knowledge, the awareness that something far greater remained deliberately locked away, settled over the stars like a held breath, waiting for the moment humanity might decide to let go. The alien fleet did not return. What drifted back toward the contested systems were automated distress beacons, fragmented retreat signals, and the quiet admission of defeat encoded in their trajectory away from human space. Commander Elias Kane watched the last hostile contact fade from the tactical display, then ordered the fleet to hold position. No pursuit, no victory parade, just silence. In the command vault, Dr. Marcus Hale stood before the console that still glowed with forbidden options. Stage 3 pulsed steadily, patient and inviting, its logic immaculate and terrifying. The systems no longer demanded release. They waited, as if confident humanity would eventually come to the same conclusion they already had. Hale closed the interface, without touching it. The Galactic Concordium reconvened within the hour. The same amphitheater that had echoed with laughter now felt cavernous and tense. Alien delegates filled their tiers with rigid stillness, their bioluminescence muted, their postures guarded. Data from the conflict played in looping projections above the chamber floor, human ships maneuvering with surgical precision, alien fleets dissolving under pressure they could not comprehend. Commander Kane stood once more at the center. This time, no one laughed. High Strategos Virex addressed him again, but the confidence had drained from his voice. "Your species violated containment expectations," he said. "You exceeded your declared capabilities." Kane met his gaze, without hostility. "We exceeded your assumptions." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Fear, not amusement. Another delegate leaned forward, its voice brittle. "Why restrain yourselves at all?" it demanded. "If this power was always yours, why hide it?" Kane did not answer immediately. He thought of the burning colonies from humanity's early expansion, of Hale's haunted eyes, of soldiers who had broken not because they were weak, but because they had been pushed beyond what any mind should bear. "We learned," Kane said finally. "Early. Painfully. The Concordium pressed for sanctions, for oversight, for access to the systems humanity had just revealed." Kane refused each demand with the same calm certainty. Human technology would not be shared. Human safeguards would not be dismantled at another species' convenience. "You could rule this council," Virex said, the words heavy with both warning and awe. "No force here could stop you." Kane's expression did not change. "That," he said, "is precisely why we won't." From Earth, Hale watched the session conclude with a reclassification vote that passed unanimously and in silence. Humanity, existential-level species. Status, voluntarily restrained. The designation spread across the galaxy faster than any fleet ever could. Border wars halted. Expansionist doctrines were quietly rewritten. Species that had measured survival in tonnage and terror now recalculated in caution. On the colony world below, Captain Jonah Reeves oversaw the withdrawal of his men. Medics moved among the wounded, human and alien alike, offering aid without discrimination. Reeves removed his helmet and looked across the ruined landscape, feeling the weight of what they had chosen not to do. A younger soldier approached him, eyes bright with lingering adrenaline. "We could have ended them," he said. "All of them." Reeves nodded. "Yes." "Why didn't we?" Reeves considered the question longer than the answer required. "Because stopping is harder than winning," he said. "And because someone has to prove that power doesn't have to mean extinction." The fleet returned home, without celebration. Systems powered down. Reactors settled back into their constrained rhythms. One by one, the limiters re-engaged, not out of fear, but out of deliberate choice. In the vault, Hale logged the final rollback report. Stage 1, successful. Stage 2, contained. Stage 3, untouched. He archived the data, encrypted it beyond even his own casual reach, and shut down the console. As he turned away, the lights dimmed, and the room returned to its long vigil. The galaxy would remember the battle as the moment humanity revealed its true strength. Hale knew better. The real revelation had been quieter, easier to miss. Humanity had shown what it could do. Then it had shown what it refused to become. Far beyond Concordium space, Observers watched human fleets move with measured grace, their power evident but sheathed. No laughter followed them now. Only distance. And somewhere, deep within systems humanity hoped never to awaken again, the final safeties remained intact, silent witnesses to a species that had learned the hardest lesson of all. Not how to unleash its monsters, but how to keep them caged.